Hey, would you look at that? The Xenoblade Chronicles series now has 2 new games! I guess that makes my old video ranking of the series rather obsolete, doesn't it? But you know what? It's not all bad remaking a video I already made before. I get to look back at the series with a new perspective and make an even more polished and cohesive ranking list. So if you care to join me, I'm going to rank all of the Xenoblade Chronicles games from what I find to be the worst to best once again. I have taken methodical measures to rank these games by quality, presentation, graphics, and really just how much I want to return to the worlds these games offer. By my count, there are 7 of these games. Yes, I'm including the DLC adventures because they really feel like their own games. Oh, and in case you are wondering, I will be judging the games by their most recent release. Now that I have gotten any and all disclaimers out of the way, let's begin with the only game in the series that I actively despise. At number 7 on my list, we have Future Connected. Talking or even thinking about this game gets me emotionally depressed and pissed at the same time. How can you make a game this disappointing and then attach it to one of the best games in the series? Future Connected takes place 1 year after the events of the main game, so whatever you do, don't play it before the main game. In fact, I wouldn't even recommend playing it at all. Future Connected has a less than engaging combat system from its predecessor, boring music, and a narrative that is so disappointing that it should have been a side quest. But why is the narrative so disappointing? Well, it's because Future Connected allegedly sets people up for the next game in the series, that being Xenoblade Chronicles 3. But here's the thing, when Future Connected came out, it did the opposite of make me excited for future Xenoblade games. On the development side of things, it turns out that Future Connected was developed with a reduced staff in order to not affect the development of Monolith Soft's next game, that being Xenoblade 3. With this in mind, it feels like they just didn't care about this additional story. So if Monolith Soft themselves don't care about Future Connected, why on Bionis should I care either? Up next is Xenoblade Chronicles 3. At this point, we have entered the territory of good games. Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is a good game, but it really needed more polish. The game runs very smoothly on Nintendo Switch, and that's impressive considering the graphical achievements this game pulls off for this console. However, there's not much more positive stuff I have to say. For starters, the existence of Future Connected trying to hype this game up only builds the sense of disdain I have for it. But the thing that holds this game back the most for me is actually the story and characters. The main cast isn't nearly as interesting as previous games, and I just don't care for Noah and Mio. Oh, but Noah is such a deep character, which is precisely the problem here. He's only deep. He's a pontificator that walks among humans when he is really a robot. I typically love characters with depth, but when there are little to no surface details to latch onto, it's no fun delving into a character. Mio doesn't fare much better. Mio is a near carbon copy of Nia from Xenoblade Chronicles 2. She has the Gormati descent, the same silver hair, the ringed weapons, the accent, the jewelry, and despite this, she still isn't nearly as interesting as Nia. Nia might have been a bit abrasive to the other characters in the first game, but that's because she had personal crap she had to deal with. Mio doesn't have any of that, and just feels boring. Yes, dear viewer, I know the lore explanation why Mio looks exactly like Nia, and I still don't care. Speaking of that lore, the story. I need to be careful here, seeing as this game only recently came out, but the story of Xenoblade Chronicles 3 just isn't as good as previous games. I can't discuss it without the risk of spoiling the story for people who haven't finished the game. I'm just going to say that when N says, "The Sword of Origin, you're going to end it all," I had a completely indifferent reaction to the revelation. And this is the thing that pisses me off. This story could have been great. Don't get me wrong, the narrative here is pretty good, but it could have been so much more. All of these interesting pieces are here that are rather undeveloped that could have made for a better story. I know I'm not explaining myself very well here, so maybe at some future date I will make a video dedicated to my issues. But for now, it's just best to move on to the next game. Coming in at number 5 is Xenoblade Chronicles 2. You should count yourself lucky this game isn't higher on the list. The sheer nostalgia factor I have for this game easily outclasses most other games in the series. But aside from nostalgia, this game is actually really good. The story is one of the best in any video game I've played. Combat systems are engaging and bombastic. The world building is the best in the series, and the soundtrack is excellent. And on a separate note, this game has perhaps the best main party members of any Xenoblade Chronicles game. At any minute, I could rank this game higher on my list, but I'm trying to rank these games fairly, and Xenoblade 2 has some issues. My issues boil down to two primary things: the blade system and the game engine. The engine this game is running on is clunky, to say the least. It has issues with performance from time to time, and for some reason, this engine has a really hard time loading textures. And when I say it has problems with loading textures, I mean the game will load an area or assets, and there will be this low poly foreground texture being used. On the other hand, we have the blade system. I have a very strong love-hate relationship with this game system. I like how it ensures unique playthroughs with new blades, and I love how this is an exclusive mechanic to this game. But at the same time, it's a nightmare to collect all of the rare blades and then assemble all of those blades into an optimal build for characters. Despite my gripes with this game, Xenoblade Chronicles 2 more than makes up for it with its stellar story and characters going on this grand adventure, and I absolutely love this game. Although, the DLC for a game is typically just as good, if not better than the original. That's why my number 4 spot is Xenoblade Chronicles 2, Torna the Golden Country. Taking place 500 years before the events of the main game, this DLC experience takes what works from the main game and builds on it. Kind of like a pillow fortress built on top of a very comfortable mattress. I'd might as well copy and paste all the things I love about the main game here for this paragraph. Although not everything works here, there are still those engine issues to be found having a hard time loading the graphics, and forcing players to complete side quests to progress the story can be pretty annoying. Other than that, this game is a grand adventure with a revised and frenetic battle system involving both blades and drivers. But what especially stands out with this game is the story and characters. This is a prequel to Xenoblade Chronicles 2, and if you know anything about prequels, you know that they are really hard to write when the audience knows the outcome of the story. Torna the Golden Country manages to make a compelling and tense narrative even when players of the main game know what unfolds. Maybe it's the beautiful visual presentation of the world, maybe it's the stellar cast of characters, maybe it's the beautiful music, but Torna the Golden Country delivers an excellent adventure in the world of All-Rest. At number 3 on my list is Xenoblade Chronicles 3, Future Redeemed. Whoa! Why is the DLC for the game ranked so much higher than the main game? Well, it's for a very simple reason. This game made me fall back in love with the Xenoblade Chronicles series. After the immense disappointment that was Future Connected, and having a mid-time with Xenoblade 3, I was at a point where I was wondering if I really wanted to call the Xenoblade Chronicles series my favorite game series anymore. And then came Future Redeemed. This game has so many great qualities to it. The combat is so much fun, the music is captivating and immersive, the world building and exploration is just fun, and the story and characters are even better than in the main game. Granted, some of that might be because Rex and Shulk, the protagonists of the first two games, show up as playable characters in this DLC. But there is one character that I love the most, and that is Matthew. How many times from these games have we seen a male protagonist, under the age of 20 years old, has an intelligence quotient 3 standard deviations above the norm, while also wielding a red sword of legend? By my count, it has happened 3 times, in all the mainline stories. Matthew is a refreshing take on a protagonist. Matthew is more obtuse than previous protagonists, but that approach works like an Occam's razor, and the simple, blunt observations he makes hit hard at the right times. He's gregarious, caring, strong, and a total oaf, but his simple motivations and unrelenting attitude means he will fight against impossible odds, and he won't leave anyone behind. I love this! Give me more! With all this in mind, the tense story, the awesome and returning characters, the improvised combat, and this grand adventure, Future Redeemed made me fall back in love with the Xenoblade Chronicles series. This game deserves its title, Future Redeemed indeed. Up next at number 2 is Xenoblade Chronicles. While the main game on the Wii is stellar as it is, the definitive edition released on Nintendo Switch is a golden example of a remaster done right. This is the game that started all of the elements the Xenoblade series is known for. The grand and epic stories that enchant us, the massive worlds to explore, the real-time battle systems, the captivating soundtracks, and many other things we all love with the Xenoblade Chronicles series were established in this game. But why is this game ranked so much higher than the others? Simple, it's because of the vision mechanic. Within the story, the protagonist Shulk can see visions of the future. But this isn't just some gimmick for the story. This is a full-fledged and integrated mechanic that is seen throughout the entire game. Devastating attacks can be averted with careful thought. Side quests will have warnings of disasters to come. Players can know what items to hold onto for that one really annoying quest. The vision mechanic alone makes this one of my favorite games. But the way that it is intertwined with other game mechanics, like the combat, which feeds into the affinity system, which feeds into the NPCs and side quests of the world. Xenoblade Chronicles has by far the most developed and well thought out mechanics of any Xenoblade game, and that is why it is number 2 on my list. But what could possibly be number 1? What game could I possibly hold in higher regard than any other Xenoblade Chronicles game? Quite simply, my number 1 is Xenoblade Chronicles X. Look, I know this game is far from perfect. If I was to make a list of nitpicks with all of the games, Xenoblade Chronicles X would have by far the most entries of any game here. The engine used is the same engine that gave Xenoblade Chronicles 2 all of its issues. This is the shortest and least complicated story of the main series. The visuals are the most aged of the entire series, and the text size is so small I need a magnifying glass to read it with my 20/20 vision. But why is this game so high on the ranking? Well, it's for a very simple reason. I miss this game. Xenoblade Chronicles X was my first exposure to the Xenoblade Chronicles series. I know it's probably not the best introduction to the series. So is this ranking based on nostalgia then? If it was, then Xenoblade 2 would be at the top of this list. It's hard to put my finger on it, but there was something magical about exploring this alien world of Mira. It whisked me away to this beautiful and dangerous landscape. Xenoblade Chronicles X is at the top of this list because it is the game I want to return to the most. And that's what I said at the beginning of the video, remember? I have taken methodical measures to rank these games by quality, presentation, graphics, and really just how much I want to return to the worlds these games offer. I miss exploring the alien world of Mira. Maybe someday in the near or distant future, Monolith Soft will return to Xenoblade Chronicles X and explore one of my favorite games of all time. But until Monolith Soft unveils something concrete, we really have no idea what they are working on. Who knows, maybe it will be a new IP that has nothing to do with the Xenoblade series. I'm sure some people will be unhappy about that, almost as unhappy as the viewers out there that disagreed with how I ranked these games. Tell me in the comments how you would rank the Xenoblade Chronicles games. Like and subscribe if you want to, and have a nice day. I'm gonna go watch James Cameron's Avatar to fill the void left by Xenoblade X. I'll see you guys some other time. Bye.